So, good morning. The today topic is generation of the programming language. In this video presentation, you will be able to explain the different generation of programming language. You will come to know about the type of programming language. You will be able to compare between low level language and high level language. So, these are the learning outcome of this video presentation. Now, who is the world first computer programmer? It is Ada Lovelace. Ada Lovelace is a world first computer programmer. She developed a first computer program in 1843 and published an algorithm for the calculation of a sequence of Bernoulli number for Charles Babbage's analytical engine. So she is considered as the world first computer programmer. Now, what are the different generation of the programming language? So you can see that these are the different generation of the programming language. The first generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, and fifth generation. Now, the first two generation, that is first and second generation, is considered as low level language, and the third, fourth, and fifth generation are called as high level language. So we will discuss now each generation one by one. In first generation, which is a machine language, this generation language is known as low level language. These are the machine language which is used to program the first generation of the computer. In previous topic, we have already discussed about the generation of the computer, in which we have discussed already that in that generation we use the machine language for programming the computer. Now the machine language is directly executable and there is no need of translator to convert the programming language, because the computer understands only the machine language, so it is directly executable on the machine. So there is no need of any translation for that. The machine language is fast to execute as compared to the high level language where there is a need of translation, because the high level language is converted into the low level language. So there is a need of translator, but in first generation there is no need of translator. So it is fast to execute. The machine language consists of binary numbers, that is 0 and 1. It is difficult to interpret and learn by the human. So these are some advantages and some disadvantages. The advantages is that they are fast to execute, and the disadvantage is that these are difficult to learn. The machine language is machine dependent. Machine dependent means that it will work on particular set of the computer. It will not work on another set of the computer. So this machine language is known as machine dependent, or they are called as machine dependent. Like you can see that the example of machine language, that is 0 0 0 0 0, and the meaning of this operation is to stop. So like this there can be many machine language coding 001100, which is difficult to understand, so it is difficult to learn. तो आपको पता लग गया कि फर्स्ट जनरेशन में जो मशीन लैंग्वेज है, एक तो वो लो लेवल लैंग्वेज होता है, और दूसरा उसे हम फर्स्ट जनरेशन ऑफ कंप्यूटर के लिए प्रोग्राम करते थे, यूज करते थे. ये जो मशीन लैंग्वेज है ये क्या है, डायरेक्टली एग्जीक्यूट करता है. इसमें ट्रांसलेटर की कोई भी जरूरत नहीं होती है, और ये फास्ट भी है, और इसमें जो इंस्ट्रक्शन होता है वो 0 और 1 के फॉर्म में होता है. लेकिन इसे सीखने में काफी दिक्कत होती है, बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ती है. एंड इट इज डिपेंडेंट, दैट इज मशीन डिपेंडेंट, जो कि पर्टिकुलर मशीन में ही रन करेगा, दूसरे मशीन में रन नहीं करेगा. उसके लिए हमको अलग से प्रोग्राम बनाना पड़ेगा. नाउ कम टू द सेकंड जनरेशन. The second generation language is also known as low level language. In this second generation, the mnemonics is used. Like you can see that the mnemonics add, subtract, store. So it is very easy as compared to the previous generation language, that is machine language. In machine it is difficult to understand, but here by using mnemonics or symbol like add, subtract, store, it is understandable that add means that it will perform addition, subtract means it will perform subtraction, and str means to store. So this is mnemonic, or we can say it is a symbols. In this second generation of language, there is a need of translator because the language will be translated into the machine language because the machine do not understand the assembly language directly. So that second generation language will be converted into a machine language. So there is a need of a translator which is known as assembler. Now, in this second generation of language, there is a one-to-one correspondence between mnemonics and machine language instruction. One-to-one correspondence means that for particular mnemonics or particular instruction, it will have only one meaning. Like add will be converted into, add will be understood like a addition of the program. So there is a one-to-one correspondence. Then the second generation language is also machine dependent, which means that it will run on a specific computer architecture. It will not run on another computer architecture. For that, the another assembly language will have to be created. This second generation language is also known as symbolic machine code. This second generation language is easy to understand as compared with the machine language, and it is slow to execute as compared with the machine language. Why it is slow to execute? Because there is a need of the translator. The translator is assembler. So the assembler will convert the second generation language, which is a assembly language. You can see the example assembly language. So assembler is a translator. What is a translator? Translator is a program. ट्रांसलेटर क्या होता है? एक प्रोग्राम होता है जो कि क्या करेगा, असेंबली लैंग्वेज को एज ए इनपुट लेगा और उसके बाद उसको क्या करेगा, कन्वर्ट करेगा. इट विल कन्वर्ट इनटू मशीन लैंग्वेज. So these are some contents of the second generation, like many advantages and disadvantages. Now come to the third generation. Third generation languages are called as high level languages. They are more abstract than the previous generation of the language. More abstract means that this language do not concern about the internal representation of the computer. Like in previous low level language, they are concerned with the internal representation of the computer architecture, which means they are dependent on the architecture of the machine. But high level language are machine independent. They are not concerned with the machine architecture. They can be run on any system. So this type of language is known as machine independent. In third generation of language, there is a need of translator like C or C++ compiler. So when we are make program in C or C++ language, then this program is converted into machine language. So there is a need of the translator. In Java also we need a translator. The third generation is slow to execute as compared with the previous generation. Why it is slow to execute? Because again, in high level language we need a translator. So some time is needed to translate from high level language into machine language. But in machine language there is no need of translator. It is directly understandable by the CPU. But high level language is not directly understandable by the CPU or by the computer, but it is directly understandable by the programmer. The third generation language support object oriented programming like C++, Java. These are object oriented programming that we will discuss in detail in C++ program. In third generation, the third generation language is easy to learn and it is easy to understand as compared to the previous two generation language. For example, in case of third generation, there are many programming languages like Fortran, COBOL, C, C++, Java. So these are considered as high level language. Now in fourth generation of language, these are also considered as high level of programming language. They consist of the statement that are similar to the English-like statement. English-like statement की तरह ही होता है ये fourth generation of language. They are mainly used in database programming, GUI, that is graphical user interface development और web development. अगर किसी ने +1 +2 में database programming किया हो, जैसे किसी ने SQL कमांड यूज किया हो, structure query language, या फिर किसी ने database डिजाइन किया हो, तो उस केस में the statement will be the language will be like a English like statement. जैसे कि जो आपके एग्जाम्पल में देख सकते हो आप, पर्ल है, पाइथन है, रूबी है, एसक्यूएल है. So when I did programming in plus one plus two related to SQL structure query language, then there is a single line which is like a English statement. Suppose करो आपको database में से उन बच्चों का डाटा चाहिए जिनके 70 से नंबर ज़्यादा है कोई पर्टिकुलर सब्जेक्ट में. देन इन दैट केस आई विल यूज select then the student name, then I will give marks and make a condition that the marks should be greater than 70. So it will be student name where marks greater than equal to 70. So it is just like a English like statement. Then in fourth generation also there is a need of translator, because again the high level language is understandable by the programmer or human beings but not directly understandable by the machine. So this need to be converted into machine language. Again it will be slow to execute as compared to the low level language, but it is easy to learn. So these are advantages of this fourth generation language, but it is slow to execute, that is a disadvantage. The example in this fourth generation language is Perl, Python, Ruby, SQL. Now come to the fifth generation of the programming language. This programming language is also known as high level programming language. In this programming language there is a visual tools to develop a program. एक विजुअल टूल्स होते हैं जिसपे आपको बस क्लिक करना होता है और उसके बैकग्राउंड में ऑटोमेटिकली प्रोग्राम बन जाता है. जैसे कि आपने एक देखा होगा ASP.NET में लॉगिन पेज बनाना हो तो हम क्या करते हैं, लॉगिन पे क्लिक करते हैं बटन पर और इसके बैकग्राउंड में क्या होता है, अपने आप ही कोडिंग शुरू हो जाता है. सो देयर इज ए विजुअल टूल that will develop a program. This generation of programming language, it is used to design to make the computer or machine solve a given problem without the programmer. जैसे कि आपके आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस में यूज होता है, दे आर मेनली यूज इन आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस रिसर्च. तो आप देखो कि ये जो प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज है जो कि आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस में यूज होते हैं, तो उसमें क्या हम इंसान की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है, वो मशीन खुद ही अपना काम करता है. दे टेक डिसीजन एट देयर ओन लेवल एंड परफॉर्म सम टास्क. They are not directly executable and need translator. Yes, this needs also translator so that it is understandable by the machine. This type of language are also easy to understand as compared with the low level language, because low level language consists of binary number that is 0 1 0 1 0 1. So it is not easily understandable by the human beings. So high level language are more easily understandable, are more easy to learn as compared with the low level language. In case of fifth generation, the examples are Mercury and Prologue. So I think in all generation, if you see that there are two types of programming language, that is low level language and high level language. If I make a comparison between these two programming, then in case of machine language, it is directly understandable by the machine. In case of high level language, it is not directly understandable by the machine, but it is understandable by the humans easily. In case of machine, the program execute faster, whereas in case of high level language, the program is slow to execute as compared to low level language. In case of machine language, there is no need of translator, but in case of assembly language, there is a need of translator, that is assembler. So it is a low level language, but in case of high level language, there is a need of a translator like C++ compiler. In case of Java, it is interpreter. So it needs some translator. In case of low level language, it is difficult to understand. In case of high level language, it is easy to understand the program as compared with the low level language. In case of machine, it is difficult to learn, whereas in case of machine language, it is easy to learn. So that's a difference between low level language and high level language. Now I have used the word translator. So the translator is a computer program that converts a program from one language to another language. It takes a program written in source code and converts it into a machine code. Machine code means it will convert the program that is source program like C++ program or C program, and it will convert that program into machine language. So there is a need of the translator in case of the high level language and in case of assembly language also. So you can see that in case of assembler, the source code is assembly language. So here the assembly language is given to the assembler, and it will convert this assembly language into object code, or it will convert into machine language. In case of compiler, it will take high level language like C, C++, and it will convert the high level language into machine language. In case of interpreter also, it will take high level language and convert into machine language. So the main function of translator is to convert the high level language into machine language. Now, what's the difference between assembler, compiler and interpreter? That is important. In case of assembler, program which converts assembly language into machine language. So again, assembler is what? A translator, and translator is what? A program. ट्रांसलेटर क्या है? एक प्रोग्राम है. जैसे आपके बहुत सारे ट्रांसलेटर है, असेंबलर है, कंपाइलर है, इंटरप्रेटर है, ये सारे क्या है? प्रोग्राम है. तो ये प्रोग्राम क्या करेंगे? कन्वर्ट करेंगे. तो असेंबलर के केस में क्या होगा? असेंबली लैंग्वेज को कन्वर्ट किया जाएगा मशीन लैंग्वेज में. Whereas in case of compiler, it will convert the high level language into machine language. Whereas in case of interpreter, it will also convert the high level language into machine language. Now, in case of assembler, there is a one-to-one correspondence. Like I have discussed already that in case of assembler, in case of assembly, we use mnemonics like add, subtract. So there is a one-to-one correspondence, that is add means for addition of the two number. In case of compiler, it will convert the whole program into machine language. आप C++ का या C लैंग्वेज का पूरी कोडिंग करो, एक प्रोग्राम बनाओ, वो क्या करेगा? कंपाइलर इसको कन्वर्ट करेगा, पूरे प्रोग्राम को, जितनी भी लाइन का आपका कोडिंग आपने किया, उन सारे प्रोग्राम को वो क्या करेगा? कन्वर्ट करेगा किसमें? मशीन लैंग्वेज में. लेकिन इन केस ऑफ इंटरप्रेटर, इट विल कन्वर्ट लाइन बाय लाइन. अगर आपने 10 लाइन की कोडिंग की है इंटरप्रेटर के केस में, तो पहले वो क्या करेगा? एक लाइन को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा. अगर उसमें कोई एरर नहीं है, तब जाकर वो दूसरे लाइन को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा. सो हेयर द एग्जीक्यूशन विल बी लाइन बाय लाइन, एंड हेयर द एग्जीक्यूशन will be after compiling in case of compiler. The examples are the assembler is used in assembly language. In case of compiler, there is C or C++ compiler. In case of interpreter, it is used in Ruby, Python. So you can see that this is a high level language, that is C++ language, and it is given to the translator, which is a program like compiler or interpreter, and it is going to convert into low level language, that is in machine language, so that the machine can understand this instruction easily. This is a very important topic which is generally asked, that what is the difference between the compiler and interpreter. So here are the difference between compiler and interpreter on various parameters. The first parameter is input. In case of compiler, it takes entire program as input. जैसे कि मैंने अभी डिस्कस किया कि कंपाइलर के केस में हम क्या करते हैं, जब भी प्रोग्राम बनाते हैं तो वो क्या करता है? पूरे प्रोग्राम को एज ए इनपुट लेता है, फिर उसके बाद क्या करता है? उसको कंपाइल करता है. कंपाइल मीन्स चेकिंग फॉर द एरर्स. कंपाइल करेगा उसको, मशीन लैंग्वेज में भी कन्वर्ट करना है, मशीन लैंग्वेज में भी उसको कन्वर्ट करेगा. इन केस ऑफ इंटरप्रेटर, इट विल टेक सिंगल लाइन और इंस्ट्रक्शन एज ए इनपुट. जैसे कि अभी मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले डिस्कस किया था कि इंटरप्रेटर के केस में क्या होगा? लाइन बाय लाइन ट्रांसलेशन होगा, फिर एग्जीक्यूशन होगा. अब आउटपुट क्या होगी? कंपाइलर के केस में आपका क्या होगा? इंटरमीडिएट कोड, ऑब्जेक्ट कोड जनरेट होगा. In case of interpreter, there is no intermediate object code generation. अब ये object code क्या है? Object code भी एक पोर्शन है मशीन कोड का, दैट इज ए पार्ट ऑफ द मशीन कोड। ये हम बाद में डिस्कस करेंगे जब हम कंपाइलेशन ऑफ C++ प्रोग्राम देखेंगे, तो वहां मैं डिस्कस करूंगा व्हाट इज ए ऑब्जेक्ट कोड। फिलहाल आप इतना समझो कि ऑब्जेक्ट कोड इज ए पार्ट ऑफ द मशीन कोड। Speed. In case of compiler, it takes more time to analyze the code, but overall execution time is fast. पूरे प्रोग्राम को वो क्या कर रहा है, एनालाइज कर रहा है कि कहाँ एरर है। जैसे कि आपने देखा होगा कि कई बार सेमीकोलन नहीं लगता या आप नहीं लगाते हो, तो उस केस में रेड एरर मैसेज डिस्प्ले हो जाता है नीचे, तो वो बताता है कि सेमीकोलन इज मिसिंग। सो इट इज टेकिंग मोर टाइम टू एनालाइज द कोड। अगर किसी की कोडिंग बहुत बड़ी है तो इट विल टेक मोर टाइम टू एनालाइज, बट ओवरऑल एग्जीक्यूशन टाइम इज फास्ट। इन केस ऑफ इंटरप्रेटर इट टेक्स लेस टाइम टू एनालाइज द कोड। वहां पर लेस टाइम क्यों लग रहा है कोड को एनालाइज करने में, क्योंकि वो एक लाइन को एनालाइज कर रहा है। सो इट इज टेकिंग लेस टाइम टू एनालाइज, whereas in case of compiler it is taken entire program, so it is taking more time to analyze the code। बट ओवरऑल एग्जीक्यूशन की अगर हम बात करें इंटरप्रेटर के केस में, तो वो स्लो है। क्यों? पहले वो एक लाइन को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा, फिर दूसरे लाइन को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा, अगर उसमें एरर है फिर उस लाइन को मॉडिफाई करना पड़ेगा, फिर वो उस लाइन को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा, फिर तीसरे लाइन को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा, अगर उसमें फिर एरर है फिर उस लाइन को मॉडिफाई करना पड़ेगा। सो ओवरऑल एग्जीक्यूशन टाइम इज स्लो बिकॉज इट इज लाइन बाय लाइन conversion into machine language, whereas in case of compiler it is taking whole program as an input and then after compiling it execute. So overall there is a fast execution in case of compiler, but in case of interpreter it is slow. Overall execution is slow. Then in case of compiler there is a more memory requirement. More memory requirement क्यों? क्योंकि वहां क्या हो रहा है, आपका ऑब्जेक्ट कोड जनरेट हो रहा है। But in case of interpreter, there is a very less memory requirement as compared to the compiler. Then in case of compiler, it display error after entire program is checked. जब आप पूरा प्रोग्राम बना लेते हो और उसके बाद आप उस प्रोग्राम को रन करते हो, जैसे कि कोड ब्लॉक में हम बिल्ड और रन कर रहे थे, तो अगर आपने सिंटैक्स प्रॉपरली फॉलोड नहीं किए, देन इट विल शो यू द एरर एट द एंड। वो लास्ट में बताएगा कि ये एरर्स है, कौन कौन सी लाइन में है। सो इट विल डिस्प्ले एरर आफ्टर एंटायर प्रोग्राम इज चेक्ड। प्रोग्राम की हर एक लाइन को वो चेक करेगा, फिर लास्ट में बताएगा इस लाइन में आपके एरर्स है। लेकिन इंटरप्रेटर के केस में क्या होगा, वो एक लाइन को चेक करेगा और एक लाइन के बाद ही आपको बता देगा कि इस लाइन में एरर है। सो इट विल डिस्प्ले एरर line each line one by one. In case of compiler the error detection is difficult, whereas in case of interpreter the error detection is easy as compared to the compiler. अब कंपाइलर की केस में क्या होगा, एरर कब जनरेट होता है, लास्ट में वो डिस्प्ले करता है। तो मान लो आपके 10,000 लाइन की कोडिंग है, तो आपको वो लाइन नंबर तो बता देगा, लेकिन यू हैव टू स्विच अप एंड डाउन। बट इन केस ऑफ इंटरप्रेटर it will show you only the error after one line execution. So error detection in case of interpreter is easy as compared to compiler. The various example in compiler is C, C++, whereas in case of interpreter it is Python and Ruby. So today in this topic I hope you have understood and I hope you have understand the different generation of the programming language. You have also understand the difference between low level language and programming language, and you also have understood the concept of the translator. The three translators are assembler, compiler and interpreter, and I hope you have also understood the difference between compiler and interpreter. So that's all for today's topic. Thank you.